Hello everyone, welcome to Three Ring Circus. In this video, we're going to be starting a new series, and it's going to be called Friday Night. This story is going to be about different drug experiences and stories that I find on the internet, and it's been something I've been interested in a long time, so maybe you guys will be too. I'm excited to continue this series. It's going to be a once a week thing. Unless you guys want it more, just let me know down in the comments if you do. And yeah, let's get started. Alright, so I'm going to kind of skip through the first part of the story. He talks about how he's been struggling with depression, and he recently came off of Lexapro, which I don't blame him. I mean, Lexapro didn't do anything for me. He says that him and his wife were fighting, and she took their son over to the in-laws, I guess, to let everything cool down. And he thought that would be a perfect time to take a massive amount of mushrooms. So, I mean, that's terrible, in my opinion, but that's how it goes. And then he gets into the story. He says, I had dinner around 8 p.m. and thought I would steep 4 grams of mushrooms in tea and ingest them around 8:30. As I poured the remaining shrooms in the cup, I thought, wow, that's a fair bit more than I usually have. I was a little hesitant to drink it, but because I had the whole house to myself, I thought I couldn't have a better setting. I started to lock up the house for some reason and made sure everything was comfortable for the trip. The time was 9:45 p.m., and I was watching That 70s Show on TV in bed. I wasn't really paying much attention to what was going on. I was slightly stoned and waiting for the onset of the mushrooms to kick in. He also mentioned that he was smoking weed before this. I forgot that part. If you want to read the whole story, there will be a link in the description. My first inkling that things weren't quite right was that I noticed how fake the acting was on the show. The laugh track was really noticeable, and the show seemed different. I started to get drawn into the show and felt like I was in the scene with them. The big stopper was when the dialogue of the show started to revolve around current themes of my life. And then they would start to mention my name. Whoa, I staggered. This is really different than my other trips. The actors and actresses then started to talk to me. Holy shit, I must be tripping hard, I thought to myself. I reached over the bed and quickly turned the TV off. A sense of relief came over me as the horror of the TV trip was no more. That feeling was quickly replaced by physical pains as I realized I was now in complete darkness with the body load coming on really harsh. The darkness was replaced by vivid spiraling patterns in full color similar to DMT visuals. My body started to feel extremely heavy, and dissociation also started to begin. I no longer felt like I was in my bedroom, my house, or on Earth for that matter. As I stared into the spiraling mechanical patterns, it occurred to me that unlike a DMT trip, this wasn't going to be a 15-minute blast-off, but maybe a 6-hour roller coaster. That thought started to scare the shit out of me. I quickly grabbed my phone and started searching for some music that would calm me down. The phone itself felt like a toy, and navigating through the various screens felt completely alien. The only music I was able to find was house rave music. Not quite what I needed. It would have to do to help me get through the physical pains that were kicking in. So here I am, sitting in complete darkness, looking at a spiraling, vivid, full-color light show with techno music in the background. This isn't too bad, I thought to myself. That was until I realized the patterns I was staring at was me. I was the patterns. I no longer felt like a human being, but a soul that was everything but. Each time the pattern would rotate, shift, or fold, these sharp pains would shoot through my being. It was really starting to scare me, and the atmosphere of the trip really took a dark turn when the thought that I had died started slipping into my thoughts. Shit. Alright, so I'm officially going to be the first person to die from magic mushrooms. Not cool. Then as the death thoughts started to get louder, this presence started to emerge, similar to the presence of a DMT trip. This presence was all around me, and felt like unlike anything on Earth. It felt old, ancient, and from a different universe. I refer to this presence as the Mushroom Godhead. It was an almost angry voice. The Godhead asked what I wanted to receive, and how dare I summon him. This sent the death thoughts into overdrive, and for some reason I thought that if I answered incorrectly, I would really die. In an attempt to save my life, I don't know if it was screaming, talking, or thinking this, but I started yelling peace and love over and over for what felt like 20 minutes. The patterns had faded and I was in complete hyperspace. At this point, this overwhelming feeling of stupidity and sadness ran over me. Stupidity because I had just killed myself by overdosing on mushrooms, and sadness because everything I knew was no longer. I was no longer a father, a husband, or human. It felt very similar to the ego death I would experience on DMT, however, much darker, because I also felt like I had physically died as well. The following events, I am unsure if they really happened or if I was just dreaming. The trip had turned into a dark hell in which I could feel nothing but intense pain, and I had literally felt like I had gone crazy. I felt like there was no turning back at all, and all I could think of was that I wish it would all end. Nothing was making sense. My soul was stuck in a fucked up universe with feelings of regret. Sadness and fright was all I knew. Something inside me looked over to the corner of the room to see these small red lights. What is that? I thought. What are those funny red lines? Somewhere in my mind it told me that they were the numbers off the digital clock. 11:45 p.m.? What the hell? Where have I been for the last 2.5 hours? My mind was lost. Where have I been? I think the visions and feelings got too intense that I passed out at some point. I knew I was still tripping hard and I didn't recognize my surroundings. I couldn't figure out if I was standing or lying down. Suddenly, a part of me thought that if I could find a mirror, I could somehow salvage my life and remind myself that I was having a bad trip. I staggered to the bathroom mirror, and what I saw shocked me. I didn't recognize the being that stood in front of me. I knew him, but from where? He looked plastic and almost like he was made of wax. This person, who was myself, then began to melt. Oh fuck, I need to get out of here. I ran toward the front door. If I can get outside and see the night sky and nature, maybe it can remind me that I'm still on Earth and I'm still a human being. The night sky looked amazing, almost like a Van Gogh painting. Or Van Gogh, depends on... I'm just reading it. The trees and mountains seemed to be breathing. The mushroom godhead was still in the air, but he seemed to be approving. He or she seemed to be approving of this gigantic feeling of relief washed over me. As I was about to scream out, "I'm still here," I suddenly find myself back in the bedroom, in the fetal position, holding my stomach, looking toward the digital clock in the corner. 11:44 p.m. Wasn't it 11:45 p.m. when I looked up? It didn't make any sense. With breaks and gaps in events, I went from looking at the bathroom mirror to running toward the front door, looking at the night sky. It was like I was stuck in a bad, hellish Groundhog Day. I seemed to relive the same sequence for what felt like an eternity. I was stuck in this horrid time loop. Then I found myself looking at myself living in this time loop from the third person perspective. What a waste of life was the only thing going through my mind. I had given up all hope on getting back to reality and coming down from this bad mushroom trip. I began to dissolve in hyperspace again, and images of myself laying on the bed murmuring something about how much I love my wife and son started to repeat. I woke to the sound of the TV playing some early morning MMA show. I looked at the digital clock, 4:15 a.m. I still didn't feel right. I still didn't know who I was. The fighters on the MMA show looked like WWE figurines made of plastic. I didn't recognize any of them. I reached across the bed and saw my phone. Shit. Did I ring anyone while I was tripping? Has it been hours or days? I didn't even know my name. I looked at the phone screen and was just gazing at a picture of a father and son. The longer I stared, the more I realized this was a picture of myself and my son. I felt like crying. I survived, like being reborn. All these memories of who I was and where I lived came flooding back into my mind. It was like I was getting rebooted or restarted like a computer. I then started drifting back off to sleep. It has now been 2 days since the above experience, and all I can think about is how much I love my wife and son, how much they mean to me. Even though the experience was like a terrible nightmare, I felt like I got my priorities in order, I'm still processing what the mushrooms were trying to show me. I don't think I will be jumping back into a 4-gram dose anytime soon. But like always, I have a new respect for the medicinal psychedelics. Set and setting should always be the first thing to check off. And that's how the story ends. The experience was in 2015. Gender is male. He was age 32 at the time. And it was published on March 5th, 2017. It also says that he weighed 71 kilograms, if that's of any interest. So in conclusion, what I've gathered from this and personal experiences is that you really don't need to be doing massive amounts of mushrooms if you're having a lot of fucked up shit go on in your life at the time. So, yeah, that was pretty bad timing for that. Anyways, if you guys are new to the channel, subscribe. I plan on doing this every week, every Friday. And I also have another series coming out toward the beginning of next week. I plan on doing that weekly too. It's going to be about conspiracy theories, and I think that'll be fun too. It's something I've spent a lot of time looking into, and you know, I think maybe I'll have an interesting take on that. But yeah, if you like the video, let me know down in the comments, and I'll see you guys in the next one.